Well, that's fast. Trump already has a trial date on his Georgia indictment, but get this, he has it before Trump and the other 18 defendants have even been booked or arraigned. Now, arraignment is the official moment the prosecution begins. That's when an accused has read the indictment, unless he waives the reading and pleads guilty or not guilty. But it's the first time an accused is in court, officially informed of the charges against him. Up until right now, no Georgia judge has informed even one of the 19 accused of the charges. No pleas have been entered. It's been merely Fulton County clerk's errors, media reports, TV pundits and anchors, and a DA press conference. None of that is official, not even hinted at in the Constitution. The arraignment, that's the first step. But the DA in Georgia apparently thinks an arraignment is just a mere formality. It is not. And she just went ahead and she set a trial date. She picked it, March 4th. So mark your calendars, March 4th. You'll likely be able to watch this on TV. And to think, the DA in picking March 4th, just out of a hat, did this without consulting the schedules of 19 defendants and 19 defense lawyers for a total of 38 people because they haven't even had a court date yet. And check out Trump's packed schedule in the new year. January 2 is the special counsel Jack Smith's proposed date for the 2020 election trial in federal court in Florida. I don't know how long that trial will take. No one does. January 15th, Trump simultaneously has the Iowa caucuses and the second E. Jean Carroll civil trial in New York. January 23rd, the New Hampshire primary. February 24th, the South Carolina primary. And then Georgia's trial date, March 4th. And then the day after the 4th, when the Georgia trial begins, and who knows how long that trial will take. Remember, there are 19 defendants and a 100-page indictment to contend with. But on March 5th is the Super Tuesday primaries. On March 25th, Trump's criminal trial in Manhattan begins. I know what you're thinking. What if on the 25th, the Georgia trial with all those defendants that started on March 4th and that 100-page indictment, what if it's not over for the Manhattan trial? Good question. And there's more. On May 20th, Trump has his classified documents trial in South Florida. Look, if you don't like Trump, chances are you're cheering the schedule. But I can tell you, as a former defense lawyer who's tried many cases, trials take a lot of preparation for both clients and lawyers. You can't just show up. And if you are cheering what this DA just did in picking this date and knowing the pressure it puts on all the accused, you have not read or you do not understand the Constitution. And think about this. Next time, it could be you looking down the barrel of a prosecutor doing something like this. I don't criticize this DA for not liking the 19 defendants. No prosecutor likes defendants. But with the awesome power of prosecutor, she should not abuse her power to gain an unfair advantage or to trample on constitutional rights. The DA wants to win. I get that. But it must be fair and square. The Constitution doesn't ask, but it orders a fair trial, which necessarily includes the fair opportunity to prepare for it. Good evening and welcome to The Record. I'm Greta Van Susteren. In a few moments, you're going to hear from Senate Judiciary Committee member, Texas Senator Ted Cruz. But first, Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, who slapped Trump with his fourth indictment, is under scrutiny. For what? Senior Correspondent John Huddy is outside the Fulton County Courthouse in Atlanta, Georgia. He's here to tell us. John?
Yeah, and Greta, the other date we're wondering about is when former President Trump is going to be arraigned here at the Fulton County Courthouse behind me. That is a big question mark at this point. But look, Fani Willis, her name has become one of the most famous, or infamous, depending on who you ask, in America at this point. A little background about her and her life. She was born in Inglewood, California, so in Southern California. Her father was a criminal defense attorney and also a member of the Black Panthers. When she was young, the family moved to Washington, D.C. The parents split up. She stayed with her dad. Years later, she went to school at Howard University, and then she got her JD, her Juris Doctorate. She got her law degree at Emory University here in Georgia, where she remained. She became a prosecutor for 16 years, and then she was elected Fulton County D.A. in 2020, and really became well known, Greta, for going after defendants using Georgia's RICO law, the racketeering law that we've heard so much about. Among those defendants, actually, last year she brought RICO charges against the hip-hop artist, the rapper Young Thug, who's, incidentally enough, whose father I spoke with outside the courthouse earlier today about the similarities and the comparisons between his son's case, the RICO charges against his son, and former President Trump. And that's kind of really where the similarities and comparisons begin and end. But I talked to Mr. Williams about the case against Trump, about the RICO charges, and about D.A. Willis. But first, here's what he said about the indictment against former President Trump. Listen to this.
I'm a Trump supporter.
Okay.
And I'm going to stand firm with Trump.
Why?
Because the things that are being done, I think are not right. That's my opinion.
As far as the indictments?
The indictments, you know what I'm saying? I think a lot of things that's going on at this point is political now. It's being made political on both ends. You know what I mean? So, you know, to do people unfairly in the judicial system.
All right, so clear, he's not a fan of D.A. Willis, and he went into detail about why, particularly with his son's case. That's for another time, that's for another story. But Donald Trump and his legal team are also on the attack. They're calling for D.A. Willis, and they have for quite some time, to be disqualified, saying she's prejudiced, saying she's biased. They've often referred to the New York Times article back in July of last year about contention over Willis hosting a Democratic fundraising event for a local candidate and also a Trump critic and a Trump opponent here. And now there's contention not only about Willis, but the judge assigned to the case. Judge Scott McAfee has been on the bench only a couple of months and at one time worked in the Fulton County D.A.'s office under D.A. Willis. And Greta, one final update, one final note about that so-called fictitious document mishap. We talked about it on the show last night. That was this supposed docket, the 13 charges against Donald Trump that was posted on the Clerk of Court's website here in Fulton County early Monday. Then it was removed. It was called fake. Well, then later, the Clerk of Courts came out with a statement, as we told you about last night, saying it was a mistake. They were testing the system. Well, today, the Fulton County Clerk, Shay Alexander, said when she was coming up with the indictment, testing this fake indictment, testing the system, the court's docket system, she says she accidentally pressed send rather than save. She said, I'm human, it was a mistake. What she still hasn't explained, though, is why those 13 charges in this fake indictment document were almost identical to the 13 charges against former President Trump in the actual true bill, the indictment that the grand jury handed up to the judge, and that was unsealed about 9 hours later. Greta?
Not to mention that it took her a couple days to figure out that she's to come forward and saying that, but whatever. John Huddy, thank you. Former federal prosecutor, former assistant district attorney in Cobb County, Georgia, Francey Hakes, and former U.S. attorney for the Northern District of Alabama, Jay Town, joins me. Jay, anyway, that 19 defendant case with 19 lawyers, 19 defendants can be ready to go in early March.
Absolutely not. And how ironic, and really sort of just, I don't know, random that she would pick the Monday before Super Tuesday to actually have, which is when Georgia's primary is, by the way, for the Republican nominee for President of the United States. Look, I spent 22 years, Greta, as a prosecutor. I took my oath, I took my job incredibly serious as a Marine, as a state prosecutor in Alabama, and then as a United States attorney. And I can tell you that Fani Willis is an embarrassment to prosecutors everywhere. She should take 2 weeks off and then quit. This entire indictment, the more I read it, the more enraged I get about the charges that have been levied here against many of these people.
And Francey, this is your stomping ground. This is Georgia. You know, your thoughts about a March 4th trial date?
Well, it's not just my stomping grounds, Greta. I interned at the Fulton County District Attorney's Office my summer after my first year in law school. So it's been a while, but I'm certainly familiar with generally how things work there. And I can promise you that district attorneys don't file motions for trial dates before there's even been an arraignment and a discovery and motions filed, and the judge and the defense attorneys have some idea of how long the trial is going to take, because the date will be set by the judge and it will be determined by defense attorney availability, court calendars, and all sorts of other outside considerations.
So why did she do that? They haven't even been booked or arraigned, and she's doing it. So you tell me, Francey, why did she do that?
Well, I mean, Greta, I can't help but think this just looks political. It looks like they want to tie up the president, former president, in the election season. But I really do think for her, it's about getting in the courthouse first and the state charges, getting him convicted, which will be her ultimate goal, and then agitating with blue state governors to keep President Trump off the ballot. Because while that would be unconstitutional, there's some argument about amendments and different federal statutes that prohibit people who are felons from running for federal office. I don't think that applies to the president, but I think there will be an argument. And so what I think is she wants to get this case in and prosecuted before the general election. And it's going to take weeks and weeks with this many defendants and this much evidence.
Don't forget that it took about almost a year with O.J. Simpson. It was one defendant. They've got 19 here in this 100-page indictment. It's only, I think, 2 counts in the O.J. Simpson case. But, of course, Georgia and Florida aren't necessarily the same. Francey and Jay, both stick around. There's much more coming up.